Hello and welcome, fellow bookworms and film fans. Welcome to this week's episode of The Content Narrative. We will be looking at The Time Machine, which is in my H.G.Wells collection, as I'm sure you saw this before with The War of the Worlds. And you'll probably be seeing it again with The Island of Dr. Moreau at some point and The Invisible Man. So, the book itself was published in 1895. It was then adapted to screen a few times, but I will be looking at the 1960 version. As always, I will be looking at three things. I'll be looking at how good is the book, how good is the film, and of course the plot. What does the film take from the book? So, the film. Now, this film is of its time only in regards to the effects. So, at all points during the film, if there's any kind of effect, you can tell that it was made when it was made. In regards to the plot and the character development, it's aged a little bit better. I mean, the main guy in it does seem a bit condescending, but that's, if you think about it, he came from like the 1900s, Elizabethan England or whatever it was, and then he's gone forward in time, and so he thinks he is better, basically. So he discovers what he thinks is an ideal society when he goes forward in time, because he's created a time machine. However, it's not really an ideal society, and he realises quite quickly that society has delved into two different points. You've got the Morlocks and you've got the Eloi. Now, the Eloi are sort of like simple creatures. They're fed, they're clothed, and they're eaten by the Morlocks. Whereas the Morlocks live underground and they're vicious, and they're the ones that basically control it. Now, in the film, he does stop a couple of times before he gets to the Morlock and the Eloi. He stops during World War One, he stops during World War Two, and he stops during a nuclear attack as well. And as I said, the effects for the nuclear attack are worth watching, just for, like, literally just watch the film just for those effects. They're absolutely hilarious. So then it progresses with him forming a bond with the Eloi, because that's who he first comes across, and then he ends up becoming friends with the woman, what is her name? Weena, that's it, her name's Weena. And he forms a bond with her, and then he ends up sort of like, once he's gone on this little adventure, he goes back in time to talk to his friends and tell his friends what he's seen. His friends don't believe him. His friends kind of just like laugh at him a little bit. So he goes, you know what? I'm off. And he goes back to the future. I know that's a film. Very good film as well. I mean, it's a lovely little film and it is enjoyable to watch. It's not one that I would sort of go out of my way for. It's not one that I'd go, oh, do you know what I really fancy watching today? The Time Machine. But it is a good film, and it's got a good premise to it. Sort of like, never obviously assume who's in charge, and always be nice, and you know, all that normal stuff. I mean, I'm unlikely to rewatch the film. As I said, it is a good film and I did enjoy watching it, but I'm very unlikely to actually rewatch it. So I'd give it a 6 out of 10. I reckon you should watch it if you've not seen it before. If you've seen it before, you don't really need to rewatch. So the book. Now, this book I struggled to read, which is surprising because I really enjoyed The War of the Worlds by H.G.Wells. Like, I really enjoyed that book. So I don't think it's the writing style. I think it's the characters. I just couldn't get on board with, because he's only known as the time traveller in the book, and I just couldn't get on with the time traveller, the main character. I just didn't like him. I didn't like his motivation. He just seemed selfish and not very nice. You know, and then he started going on about philosophical debates as well, like with himself, and then with the Eloi, and I just found that tiresome to read. I literally at one point I was just like, do I have to get through this? Which is a shame, because as I said, I really enjoyed The War of the Worlds and I was really looking forward to this one. But to be perfectly honest, I mean, it's only a couple 100 pages long, so it's not even that long, but I just couldn't wait to get it finished. It wasn't as bad as Elevation that I did the other week, because that one was just, I mean, it was a quick read, but my God, I never will read it again. This one, I feel like maybe if I enjoyed philosophy more, I might have enjoyed this book. But for me, it's not really one that I felt about. And I mean, like in the book, Weena passes away, she gets killed. And I was just like, all right, she's gone, now what? Whereas normally, if a character dies in a book, if I'm invested in the book and invested in the characters, I'm like, oh my God, like I can't believe they're gone. There's got to be a way to get them back, but with this I was like, all right, she's gone, what next? So this book gets 4 out of 10 from me. Just because, I mean, I enjoyed the basic concept, but everything else I was like, I just wasn't invested. So the plot. So the book starts with the time traveller talking to his friends about time travel after a dinner. And the film starts with his friends in his house as the time traveller falls through the room looking exhausted, and then recalling his tale, which brings us to where the book starts. Now, in both, the time traveller has a little model of the time machine that he shows his friends first, and he sends this little time machine off into the future, and they're obviously very like, all right, a magic trick, congratulations, like, what more do you want? And then they're sort of like, they don't really believe him. Now, the film is from the time traveler's perspective. The book is from a friend's perspective. But then when he goes forward in time, it's the time traveler telling the friend and then the friend narrating it to us. Now, in the film, as I said before, he stops 3 times. So World War One, World War Two, and World War Three, which is a nuclear war. Then he gets stuck in caves before finally coming across the future with sun and nature and rather passive humans, which is the Alloy. In the book, the first time he stops is with those Alloy. That's the first time he stops, is with the Alloy. So he doesn't stop at any point before that. He just goes forward to them. Now, in the film, he rescues Weena from drowning and ends up eating with them. And then he's stunned that they don't have no books, they don't work, but they have their food. And they're vegetarians, but they have their food, their clothes, and everything for them. And he gets really annoyed with them at one point. And I must admit, I get annoyed at this bit of the film. Just because when he goes in to have a look at the books are like mouldy and falling to pieces. And it broke my heart, never mind, like, do you know what I mean? So anyway, in the book, they seem very childlike and he's awed by them and their simplicity. In fact, in the book, they're described as being quite small. And there's like people of all ages in the book. In the film, you only see them sort of like middle, like 20s, like, you know, basically 20s. You don't see anyone older and you don't see anyone younger. In both, the time machine is stolen and moved into the sphere. And in both, it seems that the people are not as intelligent as the world was. As I said, people of all ages in the book, 20s, 30s in the film. Now, in the film, he has Weena, who he develops feelings for. And Weena develops feelings for him. And now in the book, we are now getting him rescuing Weena. And she forms an attachment to him. So it's not that he starts feeling for her. He just forms a sort of like she forms an attachment with him and he just kind of puts up with her like a pet. Now in both, he now understands that there are 2 races after getting glimpses of the other ones, the Morlocks, and he understands that the holes in the ground are actually ventilation shafts for the Morlock society. Now, in the book, he descends to the world of the Morlocks himself for the first time just to learn more about them. In the film, he doesn't do this for quite some time, and he only does it when the Eloy get captured. Anyway, so he's almost captured by the Morlocks. Then he wastes all his matches getting away, but don't worry, he gets more. Now, in the film, as I said, he goes into the Morlock's den because the Eloy hear like this air raid siren go off. And they then sort of like walk passively into the Morlock's lair, as it were. But Weena's with them, so he then decides to go in and save them. Now, in the book, he goes exploring with Weena and finds a museum where he gains camphor, matches, and a crowbar. In the film, he descends below, he fights the Morlocks, and he saves the Alloy, and the Alloy start getting a bit more aggressive rather than just really passive. And in the book, as him and Weena are camping out, they're attacked. He accidentally sets fire to the woods, and this unfortunately in turn kills Weena. In the film, he helps the Alloy escape and destroys the underground world. In both, the doors to the Sphinx happen to be open, so he rushes to get them, and he gets the time machine. Now, he's attacked by Morlocks in both, but is able to get the machine going. In the film, he leaves, but Weena's behind the door as the door's closed. So she's about to run in, the door's closed, and then he realises that he's leaving Weena behind. In the book, obviously, Weena's dead, so she's long gone. So anyway, in the book, he goes forward in time again to witness more things that go on before he goes back in time to see his friends. In the film, he goes straight back in time. But in both, after the story is told, and many of them don't believe him, our narrator tries to fill for him, but notices that the time traveller is then gone, and he's taken the time machine. So in the book, he's just gone. He just goes. We assume back to where he was, or maybe to explore something else. In the film, it's quite obvious he's going back for Weena. Now, The film and the book have a very, 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 very bare resemblance to each other. In the respects that he travels forward in time, you've got Weena, you've got Eloy, you've got Morlocks, but the whole sort of like plot and the intricacies, not really at all the same. And then other than sort of like the main points, the narratives kind of take their own path to a story. So it gets a 3 out of 10 for me. Now, obviously, if you agree or disagree with anything that I've said, please do leave it below in the comments. If there's any books, film adaptations you'd like me to do, please, again, leave it below in the comments. Don't forget to join us on Facebook under The Contented Narrative, or on Instagram under The Contented Narrative. You can join in the group discussions. But thank you so much for your continued support, and remember to always keep it contento.